This is a Corvette.
New Camaro, not M3. Doing it like a new Chevy.
Ah, the good old days. May I have another, please? Well, I'm down on my bum knees, eye level, lips parted, with the augmented gonads of the good old days getting longer and fatter before my gaze. That timeline, elongating, becoming richer and rosier with each passing year. Suckle those memories and rewrite them so you're cooler and fitter. Suck! Your jokes always landed back then, and the setting sun was a creamsicle. Suck! And you had a Camaro back then, and it was great. So get there again. Get it up again. And all you have to do is swallow and smile. Swallow the legend, you trick! Work that throat, and I promise that everything will be okay.
2020 Camaro 1SS 1LE. This is a Corvette. For people who think the C8 sold out by going mid-engine, Camaro SS. For Corvette owners resistant to change. The Camaro 1SS, or just SS, has the same LT family engine. Now the C8 has a LT2, making 495 horsepower, while the Camaro 1SS has the LT1, making 455 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, and an equal 455 pound-feet of torque at 4,400 RPM. It's fast enough for you, old man. I took the traction control off, and this happened.
Yeah, that wants to, yeah, you want the, yep. If it can't count, compens. Yep, it chops it. Yep, chops it.
The rear tires can't be wide enough for 455 pound-feet of torque sent unrestricted through a manual transmission. I love that General Motors allows this still in 2020. You want the traction control off? Okay, it's off. Best of luck, kid. In that way, that dangerous way, this Camaro still has the self-destructive freedom as the Camaros of the 1960s and 1970s. But I hate that General Motors tried to make it sound like an old cammed up Camaro. Those Crackles and Burbles are fake.
Yep, it's artificial. Sounds good, but still artificial. All right, well now I'm in tour. It still did it, but it wasn't as loud. Yeah, it did. Yeah, so that's tour, and track is. Yeah, okay, all right. So maybe it is actual fuel.
In the good old days, the 1960s, 70s, and 80s-ish, crackling exhausts were the result of aggressive cam profiles, hot spark, ported heads, huge carburetors, which sucked so much CFM that no amount of timing advance could contain the combustion on deceleration. The noise you heard was the air-fuel ratio still combusting on the way out of the exhaust valve, held open by long lift and duration aftermarket camshafts. And back then, cam profile was fixed. You had to choose where you wanted to make power with those classic small block Chevys, Fords, Mopars, and by extension all the big blocks as well. On top of that, people ran straight pipes. No mufflers. Or maybe straight flow glass packs, cherry bombs, and thrush. So cracking and popping from a naturally aspirated engine was a negative symptom of big power engines. All that was fuel burning outside of the combustion chamber where it did big fat handfuls of bupkis to propel the car. Modern engines can make big power without this side effect, thanks to computer timing, adjustable cam profiles, and direct gasoline injection. But Big Bobby Bow-Biddle Breadwinner bemoans his bogus bales bemanning better bounds to do, so he battled with his baby bottle or the battle or he won't buy. The customer is always right. The 1LE's ECU tells the direct injectors to miss some fuel into the chamber during the exhaust stroke, specifically when the throttle slams closed after high RPMs. And I'm guessing there's a random number parameter written into that code to make the after fires perfectly imperfect. They're about as in sync as a boomer making a TikTok video. Another thing. What kind of stress is burning fuel in the exhaust system putting on the catalytic converter? Can't be good for it. All that platinum mesh is already heat cycling hard to make a 455 horsepower 6.2 liter V8 more environmentally friendly than a V6 from 20 years ago. Now you're torching the catalytic converter for what? To sound cool? Well, that coolness is eventually going to cost you $500 to $800 because that's what a new cat for a Camaro is going for these days. There's no free lunch.
Say some nice things, Brian.
How about this? The 1LE package makes this Camaro handle like an FRS, but way sharper. The 1LE is basically a $7,000 package with $12,000 worth of value in parts when you add everything up. The Recaro performance seats, electronic limited slip diff, mag ride control, or the track mode, which stiffens the suspension further than a rusty nail with extra scotch and no ice. It also gets you quicker steering response and throttle progression that, quote, opens up the exhaust for optimal track performance, according to Chevrolet. This Camaro is a joy in the corners, but unlike an FRS, the forgiveness is way less. You have over twice the power, and when the traction control and stability control is on, you can drive foolishly, and it'll smooth everything out, even smoothing your throttle manners. So, you think you're a really good driver. But, the visibility. Ugh. This Camaro is the only car I've ever driven that has poor front visibility. And we drove the hero car from Defiance. This is worse than that. There's no practical reason for the hood to be this high. It's just that way for style. But that style means that I can't see over crests of hills. Hills that I could see over in a C5 Corvette, I can't see over in a 2020 Camaro SS. But the 6-speed manual is crisper than whatever Ford is putting out these days in 2020. And combining the HVAC controls with the vents is a clever way to declutter the interior. Once upon a time, professional rich guy Ted Turner decided to fund a wrestling company. When he called Vince McMahon to let him know he just got into the wrestling business, Vince responded with, "That's nice, Ted, but I'm in the sports entertainment business." The point of this tired analogy? In 2020, the Camaro isn't in the muscle car business. It's in the sports car business. Its competition isn't the Mustang anymore. It's the BMW M3 or the M4. That's how Chevy would like for it to be anyway. The Camaro tries to look both athletic and intimidating, on the stylistic assumption that nothing is more terrifying than a well-dressed badass carefully removing his expensive clothes for a fight. Please believe me when I say, once the Omega watch comes off,
It's on like Wheel of Fortune at the retirement home.
this is less of a lean muscle car and more like a corn-fed track athlete, which is the point behind the 1LE package. 2020 Chevy Camaro. For the man who fell in love with a cam girl, and now the bank owns his house. Oh yeah, the 6-speed manual has rev matching both up and down. So it's more forgiving than childless ant. 0 to 60 is about 4 seconds, which seems great, but then any GM nerd will tell you that the Corvette C8 can do the same thing in 2.9 seconds. Now granted, they have a variation of the engine, the LT2 versus the LT1. And really, if we spend all day comparing a Camaro to a C8, we're going to end up sounding more negative on the car than we actually are. Because honestly, this is the best non-handling Corvette in GM's lineup right now, even if it is technically the worst-selling car. There were rumors circulating in late 2019 that General Motors plans on killing the Camaro altogether by 2023. This rumor gained enough traction that GM felt the need to respond with an official statement that man spreads the line between confirmation and denial, saying, "While we will not engage in speculation, we will remind you of our recently announced updates coming to the Camaro lineup this fall. An all-new LT1 model will provide customers V8 power with the design and affordability of our LT trim. The award-winning SS model will feature a new front fascia from the Camaro Shock concept. All of our updates are customer-driven to improve the car and its driving experience." How's that for a non-answer? Now, all of this was before the current era, which affected the auto industry across the board. But Camaro sales have been hit harder than its competitors. Mustang sales are reportedly down 27.3%, while Dodge Challenger sales are down 35.2%. Camaro sales, meanwhile, are down a whopping 46.31% in the second quarter of 2020, according to a report by GM Authority. In that sense, maybe getting rid of the Camaro is the more financially responsible thing to do. I don't know. I just know I wouldn't want to be the company comptroller having to keep an eye on the budget, because we've had enough bad experiences with comptrollers in our district anyway.
Hi, I'm Ralph Mothersbaugh, and I'm running for city, state, district, county comptroller or whatever. Now, my opponent claims I escaped from a detention facility for violent offenders. This is false. I was actually released from that detention facility after 5 long years. My opponent doesn't believe in God or babies, and we can't have a man like that in the house where the comptroller lives. Wait, where does the comptroller live? So you're telling me the comptroller just lives in whatever house he already lives in? You told me if I were comptroller, Lisa wouldn't be able to take the house. My opponent puts the douche in fiduciary. He drives a Camaro, and not one of the old cool ones that have exhaust notes like a smoker farting through his mouth. No, he drives one of the new ones with the facelift that looks like a prison. I should know. My opponent doesn't even know what a comptroller does. But I recently learned, and I will apply that knowledge by keeping a gentle eye on the budgetary practices of our community in the proud American town of... Wait, where are we? Ralph Mothersbaugh. On election day, come home to mother. Zbaugh. What do you mean election day already passed? Oh, dude! Oh my god, dude, no! I'm Ralph Mothersbaugh, and I approve this message.
But even with those numbers, you can't ignore that this Camaro wants to be driven hard. You have to fight your instinct not to go for the honeybee climax. You know how honeybees tend to mate mid-flight, and it's probably awesome in the moment, being part of the 1/16th of a mile high club, except they died doing it when their honeybee schlong and honeybee abdomens get ripped off in the process. Maybe you want to go flying down the street in your 2020 Camaro, or fly around the track and feel the high that comes with going faster than you know you should. But I promise, you don't want to go out like a honeybee. The moral of the story, keep that traction control on, because the Camaro 1LE is a monster.
And so we come to the new Camaro. It's not that narrow. It's an ISS and a 1LE, not an LT2.